Internalized ableism with a late diagnosis of autism and ADHD. Hi, I'm Brett the Audi Boss, and on this channel we talk about ADHD and autism in the workplace. I have over 10 years of leadership training and experience in a corporate work environment. In my recent interview with Dr. Anna Neff of Neurodivergent Insights, we talked a lot about autistic burnout, and we specifically got into a variety of different topics. But one specific topic that I'm still sitting with after that interview was the idea that internalized ableism could actually be contributing to autistic burnout. Because I've been thinking about ableism a lot over the last few weeks since we had that conversation. And just in doing so, I happened to land on Instagram, Lindsay Mackereth's 7 signs you may have internalized ableism. She has 7 different kind of things to think about. So I'm going to go through these 7 things, kind of explore my thinking, my processing about that internalized ableism. And when I got my diagnosis, it was about 4 years ago now, and definitely in those first few years, I definitely felt more internalized ableism, and I really had to process and work through. And I don't think I'm done pushing through or working through my internalized ableism, mainly because I know I need accommodations. I know things don't have to be as complicated or as hard as I sometimes make them. As I always say on this channel, I take a strengths-based approach to autism and ADHD in the workplace. And one way that I have to do that is I have to work through my internal ableism in order to take that strengths-based approach, because taking a strengths-based approach means that I need to look for a different way in that works for me, that works for my strengths. So working through my internalized ableism is one way that I can find my way into taking a strengths-based approach. Let's take a look at this list. Number 1, you work hard to hide your neurodivergence from other people and yourself. I think at first I did, and I probably still do to some extent. I definitely think when I was starting to understand, when I was going through the self-diagnosis process of getting to understand what autism and ADHD, I really sort of had to process a lot of things about, well, but I've managed, I can do this, I can do that, and I've made this far, and I recently got a question from somebody about, is it worthwhile to get a late diagnosis, especially, I'm in my 40s at this point, I got my late diagnosis in my late 30s. Did it make sense for someone of my age to get a late diagnosis because you've made it this far? Getting a diagnosis, self-diagnosis, or figuring out a formal diagnosis gives you kind of resources, it gives you ideas, it gives you strategies, it gives you more to work through. It gives you kind of a manual that you didn't have before in simply understanding and coming closer to a diagnosis. All those previous years before understanding autism and ADHD, I was kind of struggling to work through all these different things that I thought I had to do it this way because that worked for an autistic or a neurotypical person, but it never was going to work for me. So that struggle was so much harder. The work was so much harder. The approach was so much harder. The self-talk was harder. I would beat myself up over all these different things because I couldn't do it the way a colleague or a friend or a family member would have the benefit of doing it that way. And as soon as I was able to flip that switch and go, oh, it's autism and ADHD, and in some cases OCD, I need a different way in. That's all it is. My brain processes things differently. My brain looks at the world differently. I can't be judging myself or holding myself up to the same standards as that colleague or that friend or that coworker. Maybe I wish it was a little bit easier for me the way it seems to be for them, but I can't judge myself or hold myself to that same standard because I just simply need a different way in. That's one way to start to push out that internalized ableism narrative. But I definitely got to a certain point where it's like, okay, I can't do this. This is really overwhelming for me. I need an accommodation because I'm burning myself out trying to do all of these different things that I can't do without having a different way in. Despite your strengths, you feel like you're not good at anything. I have definitely felt this. And definitely before the diagnosis, I definitely felt that I would be really, really good at one thing, and then I'd hit a wall, and then I'd think, oh, I'm not good at this at all. And then I'd have to find my way back. I'd get really frustrated. I'd have a really big meltdown. I'd have a really big overwhelm. I'd throw my hands up in the air and I'd storm off, and I'd just have to go be cranky or angry or whatever and go process that. Likewise with what I do at work. There were days where I thought I was a terrible manager. There were days where I thought I wasn't doing very good, or there were all these different things that would come up. And I would think, I would forget about all those strengths. I would forget about all those amazing things that I was really good at, that even though I was good at it. I've got experience at that, even though there are things that autism and ADHD make me better at, give more to those strengths, I would still hit those walls and feel that way. Now, when I feel those things and I see that stuff hitting me, or I feel those things where I feel like, I feel like I'm really good. If I'm having one of those days where nothing goes right, I feel like I can't get anything right, especially as a manager, where I'm trying to help my team, or I'm trying to do right by people, or I'm trying to, exist for my team. Now I go, okay. It's a bad day. There's too many negative pattern recognition things happening. My negative thoughts are taking over too much. I need to step back. I either need to take the day off, take the afternoon off, or I need to go do something simple, or I need to go take a break or walk away. Or I will try to go do something that's like an easy, small, simple win so that I can feel a little bit better about my skill set. Do you feel like you don't deserve accommodations and insist on keeping up the neurotypical norms? I did. I absolutely did. That first year of getting my diagnosis, I absolutely thought, I can do this. I've got this under control. I was also experiencing skill regression in that first year as well. So I did have these moments where I was at the same time questioning, should I still be somebody's manager? Can I be a good manager? Do I know what I'm doing? How do I manage this team? How do I do my job when I've got all these things? So I had these two things. I was trying to process understanding my autism and ADHD and what that meant and who I really was. And I was having some skill regression. At the same time, I was questioning whether or not I should be doing this. Should I be doing this job? Should I stay in this role? Should I be a manager? I needed to remind myself, again, I needed a different way in. It is a disability based on the environment in the world, in the corporate workplace, based on how everything is designed. The systems that we have are designed for neurotypicals and holistics. It is seen as a disability to be autistic and ADHD. So I needed a different way in. I needed to accept that that is a disability, and I needed to accept that I do need different accommodations. So what I just did was I went to my team and I shared with them that I have autism, that I have ADHD, and that I'm going to do things differently, and that I'm going to be transparent about it. And then if that's not working for them, I need them to tell me. In turn, I do the same for them. If they need something, or if they need an accommodation or a reasonable accommodation or something, ask me for that. What being autistic and ADHD has done is, I think, made me a better people manager, because I'm more hyper aware of everybody's needs and accommodations, and I'm more patient and more thoughtful, and I'm pausing now to go, hey, I feel like you're struggling with this thing. Is there maybe a different way in, or is there maybe a different approach, or is there maybe a different thing we can be doing here to help you be successful in this project, in this work, in your role? But eventually, I had to come to the terms with the fact that, yes, I do deserve accommodations, and I need accommodations. Number 4, do you feel the need to prove your neurodivergence? I definitely felt, when I was sharing with people who I knew already had ADHD or autism, I did feel like I needed to prove to them that I was ADHD or autistic. All these different things. You go through all these weird things when you're going through the process of getting a diagnosis. Sometimes we can gaslight ourselves into thinking that, oh, I'm not really autistic, or oh, I'm not really ADHD. It's just maybe I'm pretending, maybe I'm making all these things up. But the thing is, neurotypical minds, holistic minds, don't think that much about all the things that make us autistic and ADHD. They don't process that. They don't spend that time thinking about that. They don't spend that time analyzing it. They don't spend that much time looking into those traits. Then it's okay. Keep going. You're not taking services away from somebody. You need it just as much as somebody else might. There's no reason to minimize your needs when you're going through something that you need help or support with as well. And it took me a little bit of time to get through that and to work through that. And now I'm on the other side where I don't feel like I need to prove myself to anybody. If I feel like that, it's like, well, that's their problem. Number 5, you often overcompensate for your neurodivergence by trying to prove how capable you are. I did have that. Shortly after I asked my boss for accommodations, I felt that, yeah, I've had to do that. Kind of because of ADHD, I sort of forget that I'm like, sometimes I have that negative thought. I have that thing. I have that feeling that I have to do it. But then because I get so caught up in other different things because of ADHD, I then forget that I'm trying to do that, or that I was trying to do that. And I sort of let that go. And I don't come back to it. Every once in a while, that thought does still come back to me. And every once in a while, I feel like I have to do that. But it's less so now, 5 years on having my diagnosis. It's much less so now. But I definitely am aware of that, and it's definitely something I'm struggling with. Number 6, you force yourself to participate in events that lead to executive functioning, social, and/or sensory burnout. I wouldn't say I force myself. I actively try to not force myself. However, there are work and social pressure to force me into those situations, and I cannot get out of them. In work, you have to, especially in my role as a senior leader and as a manager, I have to perform, I have to exist, I have to go and do these things that are part of the job. They're an expectation of the job. I can ask for accommodations around those things, or I can find different hacks or different ways to accommodate myself when I have to go do those things, but they are unavoidable and I can't get out of them, and there's no way to get out of them. And if I am not there to do those things, then I can't be successful in my role, and that's difficult, and that's something I have to balance, and that's where I can struggle with, the meeting the needs of my role and meeting the needs for me, and that's difficult. I try to minimize where those things happen. I try to make sure I give myself a recovery plan. I come up with a plan for how I can handle myself after the fact. I think that's systems around me and less things that I'm doing to myself. Number 7, you don't surround yourself with other neurodivergent people. Well, now that's just not true at all for me. All of my friends are neurodivergent, whether they realize it or not. Most of my coworkers are neurodivergent, whether they realize it or not. And that's one of the funny things about it, is that my therapist always says we collect each other. If we're neurodivergent, we tend to end up with other neurodivergent friends. All of my closest friends are neurodivergent, whether they realize it or not. And then we just sort of work really well together. We have more fun together. We do all those things together. Now, within that is the difficult part, because I can see it in my friends and in my colleagues. I can see those neurodivergents in other people. It's not always appropriate for me to call that out and tell those people that, hey, I think you're autistic, or hey, I think you have ADHD, or hey, this, that, that. What I can do is I can talk about my experience and say, hey, when that happens to me, it turns out that was my autism or that was my ADHD, and hope that telling my story helps somebody relate to that or get them closer to questioning or looking into that for themselves. But therein is the problem too, because even within that, you have to fight ableistic norms and ableistic thinking from other people, and you have to sort of self-advocate, and you have to educate, and you've got to do all that stuff within those environments. And that can be hard, and that can be taxing, and that can take a lot of time out of you to sort of have to always make the case. Where I can make the case and I can explain, and they're very good at listening, they take it all in, but I don't necessarily always see it click over that there's an ableist thing in play there when we go to do something, or it's like, oh, okay, I understand. It's like you hear them understand it and you hear them make sense of it. You don't always see the action of them making the accommodation for you. And sometimes if they do, there's a little bit of an annoyance there. So maybe with a friend like that, I might spend a little bit less time with them. I may not want to go do things with them specifically, less active things, but I may be okay like going to have lunch with them or going to hang out with them or something like that. But it's all different. It's different with different friends. So that was the list of 7 signs you may have internalized ableism from Lindsay Mackereth. I'll link to this post and to her work on Substack and on Instagram. This was just a prompt for me to sort of help think through and work through my internalized ableism. There's certainly a lot more that we can be doing. I would definitely suggest checking out all of the resources on Neurodivergent Insights. I have a special code for Neurodivergent Insights for where you can get a discount for any of her paid things, but definitely check out all of her free things, because Dr. Megan Anna Neff has so many resources on their website, free and paid, where they talk about specifically all these different unmasking tools, all these burnout tools. But one of the ways that we can kind of attack our internalized ableism is by looking at masking, because in many ways we have to mask to manage ableism all the time. So, and we're not always able to fully unmask. I certainly am not. I certainly have to still mask in life and in work and in friends and in family situations. Unmasking is not necessarily something that I am always allowed to do unless I'm fully and completely alone. But I do have friends and I have pockets where I can unmask, and I have moments where I can unmask, but I can never fully unmask. But going through the unmasking process, especially highly masking individuals like myself, it's helpful to have those tools. And the website Neurodivergent Insights from Dr. Megan Anna Neff, they have great free resources on unmasking, and they have paid resources. And I have a code, AuDHD, which you can use on their website to get any of the paid resources. But definitely do check those out. Thanks for watching. If you have a topic or a question you'd like for me to talk about ADHD or autism in the workplace, please shoot me a note, comment on one of my videos, check out some of the other videos while you're here, and be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Brett, the AuDHD. Check out some of the other videos while you're here. Thanks for watching.